So I bring you the review that nobody asked for. I don't know how many people actually wanted it or expected it. And it's not going to be a review. I'm basically revisiting the JBL Extreme 1. A lot of people ask me, are you going to review the JBL Extreme 2? And I am going to review it when it comes out, but I had to rebuy the Extreme 1 because I sold my original and I actually rebought a new one cheaper than I sold the other one, the original. So that wasn't so bad. And looking, reminiscing, looking back on my first Extreme, it was an outdoor speaker. It was a beach speaker, and it was great because when it first came along, it was quite unique for its type. It was the first really powerful, portable, splash-proof speaker. I mean, I know it's dated now, and it really is dated now, but when it first hit the market, it made a big impact. It was the first of its kind. I do love the JBL form factors. I love the cylindrical shape. I love the usability that is quite rugged. You can knock it, splash proof, the JBL Charge 3 submersible. They've really come on, but still, I don't think anybody else has quite nailed the form factor in the way JBL have. And for me, these are portable Bluetooth speakers, first and foremost. And that's why I think if you buy a Bluetooth portable speaker, you have to be quite forgiving when it comes to the listening stakes. There's going to be huge trade-offs. They are portable Bluetooth speakers. Bluetooth is a compressed format by its nature. This is not, it's nice to have something that you can use for refined listening. Absolutely. But it's a trade-off, and I think when it comes to these types of speakers, it's the all-round ability. So for me, even though JBL Extreme is really, really dated in many, many ways, it's still great fun. Although, I have to say, as I said, it was originally a beach speaker. It was great because it's got that boosted bass. We know it's boosted bass. Nobody's hiding the fact it's got a boosted bass. And if you like a boosted bass, if you like bass-heavy tracks, it is great. You get the beat of the music. It's great. It's not a reason to say it's a terrible speaker because its bass is boosted. It's a reason to like it because for some people it's really enjoyable. It's a party type speaker. It's definitely an outdoor where you lose most of that bass anyway with a normal unboosted speaker. So horses for courses in many ways. Anyway, for me, JBL is all about the form factor, and it still sounds nice. It still sounds good. However, having listened to it again and not having heard it for a year, I do have to say things have moved on. So it is a dated speaker. You can do better for the money, but you can't get that form factor. I still think as an all-round, truly portable speaker, something you're truly going to take places where it's going to get knocked and splashed, I think it's still, for me, probably would be my preferred option. And I have to say also, it's Connect. It's not Connect Plus. It will never be Connect Plus. The JBL Extreme 2 will be Connect Plus, but it still confuses people. Connect Plus. Connect can only connect to Connect speakers. Connect Plus speakers can only connect to Connect Plus speakers. So I always played this with a Flip 3. I've kind of found it did balance out a little bit the problems in its sound spectrum. And especially if I pushed the Extreme a little bit away from me and I brought the Flip 3 up a bit nearer, I found that a really, really nice listen. Now, I would like to try it with the Charge 3s. I can't because I've updated them to Connect Plus. Once you go Connect Plus, you can never go back. JBL will not let you go back to the original firmware. You can try resetting it. You can do all the things people say, do this, do that. You can lose the memory for the Bluetooth, but that's all resetting, that's all that does. You will never be able to go to Connect if you've upgraded your Charge 3 to Connect Plus. So I can't try it with the Extreme. However, just for fun, I'm doing a quick comparison with the old, soon to be outdated and probably pretty much outdated JBL Extreme, comparing it to a pair of JBL Charge 3s, because that's really always the question, is it? In all the series, two of the one under it, will it be like the one over it? Two Flip 4s against a Charge 3, what's better? Two Charge 3s against the Extreme, what's better? Two Extremes against the Boombox, what's better? But I'm just saying, this is the question that people are always asking. So I'm going to do, just for old time's sakes, and it's still relevant, and I have to say, People are still buying it, even today, not just me. And they're going for about £130 regularly on eBay. People do like this speaker. If people like it, that's all that matters. It doesn't matter that some people think it's terrible and how could anyone listen to it? But it's about the all-round ability. And if you like a speaker, you like a speaker. I do like the JBL speakers with all the problems. And of course, I understand it's not a perfect sound, but I do find them fun. I know there's a direct rival to these now. I know the Sony series, but for me, there's still the inherent issues, and they do not have the same form factor. I know they've got lots more lights, but I still like JBL. By the way, it does come with a shoulder strap, which comes in really handy to use with that. First thing that struck me, which I forgot, of course, there's no USB charging on this. What you get is their own plug-in charger. So I don't know, once you've gone all USB, there's no going back either. It's only a 1.5 amp charger, so that's the downside of that. However, you do get the big battery, 10,000 milliamp hours, compared to the JBL Charge 3, 6,000 milliamp hours. Of course, it's actually more than twice the speaker, 800 grams, 2 kilos. So it's a lot of speaker with not quite twice as much battery. However, it does charge 2 separate devices if you want to use it as an emergency power bank. Bear in mind, it only outputs 1 amp from there. And also you get an auxiliary input along with the charging input. So they're very much alike. What I do like one feature that you get on the throwback JBLs as opposed to the newer JBLs, the power indicator lights are on the bottom. Turn that on, where I can see them. On the newer versions, they've got them behind or underneath, not quite as usable. The good old JBL sounds, nothing has changed that. So I'm not going to do an in-depth review. It's a bit of a teaser because the Extreme 2's come in. I am going to get an Extreme 2. I am going to do the comparisons against the old one. I'm just saying because some people are saying that they're not going to do that, but I am. On the actual specs, JBL actually rate the Extreme at 70 Hertz to 20,000 Hertz, whereas the Charge 3 is rated 65 Hertz to 20,000 Hertz. So on paper, oh, it's got a bigger bass. Well, obviously it doesn't. It's got this massive boosted bass on the Extreme, and it is upper bass rather than low bass. You can hear that. However, the sheer amount of bass makes it sound deeper and heavier than the Charge 3. Even though you can hear it might sound contradictory, but I have to say, you can hear it's all mostly upper bass, but just the sheer size of that upper bass makes it sound more than it is. So although the Charge 3 on paper goes slightly lower, you wouldn't know that on a normal, reasonable volume listening. They're both sporting old-time Bluetooth 4.1. You can charge another device also with the Charge 3, and that would charge at 2 amps. So in terms of charging another device, yeah, the Charge 3 is superior. For sheer output, 40 watts, 20 watts. And that's why it's interesting. You think on paper, oh, so 2 Charge 3s, that's 40 watts, it should be the equivalent. And 65 Hertz, 70 Hertz, it should be about as loud and go a little bit deeper. That's what you might think on paper. That's not really the case. In fact, this is a little clip comparing just how loud they go. So a single Charge 3, a pair of Charge 3s in party mode. I was going to try stereo mode, but the app being what it is, I couldn't get it into stereo mode. But anyway, party mode should be the double up mode, should be the louder mode anyway, and the Extreme. So all on maximum volume, and the tracks are relative. So you hear the difference in volume. They've not been normalized to be the same volume.
The clock is ticking, but there's no time for me. I've been flying from town to town, from London to Taiwan. I've been all around the globe trying to protect your soul. We are heroes. The clock is ticking, but there's no time for me. I've been flying from town to town, from London to Taiwan. I've been all around the globe trying to protect your soul. We are heroes. The clock is ticking, but there's no time for me. I've been flying from town to town, from London to Taiwan. I've been all around the globe trying to protect your soul. We are heroes.
Quite simply, a single charge 3 doesn't go as loud as two charge 3s, and two charge 3s do not go as loud as the Extreme. So no real surprise. A single charge 3 compared to a pair of charge 3s in party mode. The peak at around 400 to 600 Hz is a couple of decibels louder, and the bass is maybe 2.5 decibels louder. However, two charge 3s compared to a single Extreme still cannot match it. The Extreme is around 22.5 decibels in the bass. Two charge 3s is around 27 decibels. So that's actually a huge 4.5 decibels in the bass. It's actually more than you'd expect, which means the two charge 3s are reducing bass relatively that much more. So quite simply, the Extreme on its own goes a lot louder than a pair of charge 3s.
So for me, I was quite surprised. I never had two charge 3s when I had my original Extreme. I basically got rid of the Extreme to get the other charge 3. I was expecting it to be closer, and actually it was significantly louder, bigger bass, higher peaks on the Extreme. And that is a surprise to me, given that they're both 40 watts. I know power output, it doesn't tell you the whole story. It's where that power's going. However, I have to say, my preference is still for the Charge 3 overall. And this is just comparing now some clips where you hear this Charge 3 against the Extreme. They were all recorded at 70% and then normalized to be basically the same volume to make it a fair comparison.
No, I can't stop. So baby, pull me close up in the backseat of your Rover that I know you can't afford. Like the tattoo on your shoulder, pull the sheets right off the corner of the mattress that you stole. No, I can't stop. So baby, pull me close up in the backseat of your Rover that I know you can't afford. Like the tattoo on your shoulder, pull the sheets right off the corner of the mattress that you stole.
You got a brother singing a brand new song. Yeah, it's you. Girl, I wake up in the morning and I'm tripping cause I'm digging what the Lord has made. It's you. I never thought I'd be forever getting with it, but I'm also glad you stayed. It's you. You make it better. You got a brother singing a brand new song. Yeah, it's you. Girl, I wake up in the morning and I'm tripping cause I'm digging what the Lord has made. It's you. I never thought I'd be forever getting with it, but I'm also glad you stayed. It's you. You make it.
It's pretty obvious the difference between the two speakers. The Charge 3 has the better mids and is smooth between the range between the mids and the highs, although the Charge 3 is a little bit stunted at the high end, so the highs are recessed, but between the mids and the highs, it's quite smooth. That's its strong point. With the Extreme, you get more bass. It goes a lot louder. It's pretty obvious the difference there. However, you get a dip in the mids with the Extreme, which accentuates the difference between the bass and the highs. I don't like that. So you get a dip in the mids and you get a sharp end at the extreme of the frequency range, which makes it sound a little bit sharp. So it's all about the bass, and the very, very extreme highs and the mids in between is not its strong point. To me, it's a hard listen. Although the bass is a little bit lower, it's not as rounded as with the Charge 3. So track 1, Extreme, Charge 3. It's really obvious the difference. So you get more bass line with Extreme. You've got a bit of a boost there at 60 Hz, which you don't have with the Charge 3. But look at those mids. It drops right away. And there's a real obvious dip on the Extreme between 2000 Hz and 5000 Hz. It's there with the Charge 3. It's not there with the Extreme. And at the Extreme high end, again, there's a little peak there right around the 1500 and higher mark, which the Charge 3, well, you get a rapid cut off in the highs anyway, so you can't really see that difference that much. And it's the same with all the tracks. Second track, Extreme, Charge 3. So it's all about the high mid end with the Charge 3. That's the third track. So it's pretty consistent. The difference between the two speakers, I prefer the Charge 3. But if you just want to hear that bass slam and you want a bigger sound altogether, it is a bigger sound in the Extreme. You're going to want the Extreme. Although you're going to want the Extreme too, quite honestly. You're not going to buy the Extreme now. I wouldn't have thought.
So I was quite surprised looking back. Because I was in my mind, it was a fonder memory of the Extreme than reality is now. Look, it's not really broken in, and the sound would change if I really played it for an extended length of time. However, it's actually a hard listen. I find now it was enjoyable at the time. It's a hard listen, especially indoors, because the mids are missing. It's kind of not a nice high end. No, there's a sharp, slightly boosted, but not a natural high end. It's kind of harsh. It's all about that bass and enjoying hearing that thump. You get the beat to every track, and that's enjoyable 5, 10, 15 minutes. For some people, that's going to be enjoyable all the time. Now, if I'm having a party, I'm going to use the Extreme. If I'm going outdoors and I want something that's a bit fun, I'm going to take the Extreme. But just on a normal listen, I have to say, it's not enjoyable, especially indoors. That bass for me is just too much, and there's too much missing with the rest of the sound. I think it's dated. It sounded great at the time when it first came out, but it's definitely fallen behind, especially at the price. You'd think they would have dropped the price, especially with the Extreme 2 coming out. Even, its direct competitor, Sony XB41, £200. It looks like the Extreme 2 maybe £300. You can pick these up, as I said, second hand, 130 quid, but still, for a really dated speaker. So as much as I like the form factor, as much as I liked the sound in the beginning, it does sound dated. To me, I can't really enjoy that now, having listened to a lot more speakers. However, I still think it's got a place. People are still buying it today and saying it's fantastic. But hearing them side by side, I know that, they've all got issues. The Charge 3 has a problem with the high end, but still, I would rather have 2 Charge 3s than the Extreme if I had a choice. But who knows, with the Extreme 2, if it's been tuned more in line with the Charge 3, but just with a bigger, massive bass, that's something to look forward to. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed that. Just to say, I'm going to get the Extreme 2 when it comes out. I am going to compare it directly with the Extreme 1. I'm not going to knock it because it's not the most flat frequency profile, because I think JBL do some fantastic portable Bluetooth speakers that are fun and are usable in a variety of situations, not to sit at home on a shelf. So yeah, hope you got something out of that, and thanks for watching.
UK